Gonna answer the question on how I trained for 100 miles, because while it's gonna be unconventional for a lot of people, especially those in the running community, I believe, it's relatable to every single person, and that's why I want to share this. And that's why over the last couple of years, it's been pretty cool for people to continue to share one of the episodes that I was on with REALAF, talking about this 100-mile run that I did around our HQ with virtually no traditional training. So right out of the gate, how to answer the question of how did I train for 100 miles? Well, I didn't, or at least not specifically, okay? Really, that training and where the story starts was back in like 2016, and I ran this 100 miles 2 years ago. It was back in 2016, and I got challenged to run a half marathon. At the time, I hadn't run over a 5K, okay? Growing up a fat kid, I still remember the first time that my mom made me go for a run with her, and we did a mile, and my legs chafed so bad, and I was just so mentally weak as well that I fucking cried. It wasn't a good start to my running journey. And I'm still definitely not a runner or classify myself as a runner. But up until that point, I hadn't ever really run anything over a 5K that I can remember. And I got challenged to run a half marathon in 30 days. And I thought, holy shit, how am I gonna do that, right? And so trained about as much as you could, I guess, over the next 30 days, but constantly pushing myself, right? And not just doing a whole bunch of running, but at the time I was still doing a lot of CrossFit, right? Doing a lot of high intensity type training, and then just running about 3 days a week and kind of slowly working up my miles and things like that. But again, I think one of the relatable points here is that my training overall was intensity, right? It was about 45 to 60 minutes a day, pushing myself, you know, with resistance training, pushing myself with intervals, pushing myself with the running, consistently pushing myself. And on race day, you know, went out and ran a half marathon at a really good pace. It was like an hour and 37 minutes or something like that. For never doing that, it was a pretty solid start, okay? And then from then, I didn't really run a whole lot for about a year or 2 years, and almost the exact same time of year in the winter, got challenged to run a marathon, okay? Hadn't run anything over a half marathon, not anything close since then. In about 10 weeks, again, running 3 days a week with also doing 3 days of resistance training / CrossFit, focused on intensity for those last, year, and just training in life, pushing myself every single day in the gym to the best of my ability. Did I have an awesome workout every day? No. But I showed up and I tried to give my best every single day and make myself proud every single day, which I think is what people can relate to, in this story. And so then I went out and I ran a marathon after, 10 or 12 weeks of specific training for it 3 days a week, and still running a lot less miles than what is a typical marathon training program. But when I did run, I ran with purpose, I ran with intensity. And I did pretty well with that. I ran 3:09, which at the time was about 5 minutes off from a Boston Marathon qualifying time. So 4 weeks later, I went out and ran another one. And in between there, I'd only run one time because my Achilles was pretty messed up. And on race day, I took off with a bum Achilles and still ran a 3:04 and some change, which at the time was a qualifying Boston Marathon time. Okay, now fast forward another year, okay? Again, nothing specific, nothing running, nothing like, oh man, this is who I am as an individual, primarily still lifting and doing CrossFit. But again, inside of that training session, okay, working on building strength, working on pushing myself, getting uncomfortable in those high heart rate ranges, which I think transfers over to the running side of things because it builds that baseline conditioning. And then when I'm out there and I'm running at a high heart rate, okay, I'm used to operating at a high heart rate in those Metcons and those WODs. And so, when I'm running and say my heart is at like a 160 or a 165, 170, okay, it's still not like being at 175, 180, 185 that it can be doing those CrossFit workouts. So my perceived exertion is actually a little bit less, right? And I'll talk more about my running philosophy and training programs and things like that in a different video. But again, all right, so after I completed a marathon or 2 marathons, qualified for Boston, then, all right, I decided, all right, well, what's next? What else can I do to push myself and challenge myself? And so I signed up for a 50K trail run. Up until that point, the longest I'd ever run on the trail was 8 miles. So this is 32 miles and some change, okay? Went out. Again, not a whole lot of traditional training or logging a bunch of miles for it, but the 8 to 10 weeks leading up to it, running about 3 days a week, 2 more interval styles, 1 little bit longer distance run. Again, pushing myself, okay? Now, I think this is where about 2 years passed, and in the back of my brain, I started thinking about, okay, what scares me? Where are my limits, right? Because everybody likes to talk about getting uncomfortable and pushing your limits, and especially in the endurance community, everyone's like, oh man, it's just mental. Well, I can tell you it's not fucking just mental, right? If it was just mental, okay, like, there's a lot more people that would do a lot more incredible things. Now, I do think, and I know from experience, that we can go a lot further than it is that we think, okay? But at some point, your body's gonna break down, and after having success with pushing myself, okay, I went out to run 100 miles, and literally, the whole philosophy was I was gonna leave my front door with a Camelback and a credit card, and I wasn't gonna come home until I ran 100 miles. But because of my success and not giving the distance the respect that it needed, I went out way too fast. I was running like 8-minute miles, or really whatever comes out to be, running like a 4-hour to a 4:15 marathon for the first 2 marathons of 100 miles, so 50-something miles in. And that's where it all started coming unglued, okay? I was hot, I was severely dehydrated, I was way behind on calories because I was just running on ego, okay? And I made it to about 70-something miles. And by the time I got to 70 miles, my legs and my body was so shocked or locked up that I couldn't even get up the handicap ramp to cross the street. I had to like shuffle up it sideways because I couldn't get my hip flexors to raise my legs enough to get into to get up onto the curb. Also started getting like a little delirious out there, okay? And literally had to become picked up off the trail by friends at like 70 miles and some change. Getting home, and to the fact that like I was so messed up that not only did I have to be carried to my house, when they laid me in my bed after I got stripped down and kind of sort of showered, they laid me in my bed, that the sheet was painful on my feet and my ankles because of the pressure. I couldn't roll myself over with my own like strength and power. That's how messed up and how locked up my body was, because I had literally gone 38 miles further, more than double what my longest distance up to that point was. And so I can tell you, it's not just all mental, right? There is a very, very real physical state side of things here. Now, after failing 100 miles, but finding my limit, which was ultimately my goal of doing something that scared me and made me, uncomfortable to see if I could really do it, I had unfinished business. So that was in October. Between October and the beginning of March, I ran 3 times, 3 miles each time. And then on about a Thursday morning, okay, or Thursday around noon, I decided that the next Friday morning, I was gonna run 100 miles in under 24 hours. And I was gonna do it in laps around our building here at First Form headquarters with no music, no headphones. Didn't really tell anybody. Was just gonna do it for myself. Just like I was gonna do the first one for myself and not really tell many people about it. And so I showed up and got out of my truck and I sat there and I just started running. But I ran respecting the challenge that was ahead of me, but also running with the experience and the miles on my legs, that even though I hadn't trained traditionally to go an additional 30 miles after my body was that locked up, I believed that I could do it. And with a little bit smarter strategy, okay, from learning through experience, which is another key lesson I think we can all take, I did it. Okay, 19 hours and 46 minutes or 45 minutes and some change, whatever it was, doesn't matter. I did it, okay? And I'm damn proud of that. It was the best thing that I've ever done for myself. Because there's so many lessons inside of there that during that time frame, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a runner. I'm not someone that dedicates hours and hours to training. But over time, consistently working to do the best that I could to show up in my workouts and to show up in my days every single day, by pushing myself incrementally, I was able to achieve that, right? I mean, fuck, here at First Form, I work more hours than I could count. Don't care, right? Because that is my number one priority in life is right now is building that career for my family, to be able to support and provide the way that I want. But when it comes to, the training side of things, that's just give it your best every single day. And it's incredible what you can actually accomplish when you do that. And I a lot of people, they think, oh, well, you know what, I could do that too if I trained all the time, or if I had more training, or if I had more X, Y, and Z. Well, I'm literally living proof that with about an hour a day, you can get a lot of shit done, but you have to be willing to get very uncomfortable, train with purpose, train with intensity, and push yourself every single day. So answering the question of how did I train for 100 miles? Well, I didn't really. I didn't follow a running program. I made up all my own programming, okay, with combining strength, CrossFit, and and running. I got it done. And you can do it too. And that's why I share this story, is that whatever that goal is that you're thinking about, whether it's physical, whether it's athletic, whether it's career oriented, whether it's whatever the case may be, or maybe you see people that are doing these incredible things and you think, man, it'd be nice if I had the time to do X, Y, and Z. It'd be nice if I had that skill. It'd be nice if I had whatever. Well, that's bullshit, because you can achieve it. Because I am a firm believer that inside of this world, we can do about anything that we want, but we can't do everything. But what we can do is maximize our time, okay, and really focus on what is a priority and give our best effort. And when we do that consistently, day in and day out, you can accomplish incredible things.